Well, so now what's the current status of the Clean Water Act, the restoration of that act what's the status, legislatively speaking, right now as we speak?
So the Clean Water Restoration Act is a bill in Congress. It's a really elegant bill. It's about a page long. It's actually swelled to 3 pages, but it's far shorter than the healthcare bill or the...
That's unusually short.
It's very simple. It just clarifies. It just says it'll put into statute that the Clean Water Act applies to all surface waters in the United States. That is the way the Clean Water Act was interpreted for 30 years until the Bush administration basically unilaterally rolled it back. And so it's a very simple bill. It's been introduced every year, or every Congress, every 2 years for the last 3 or so Congresses, for the last 6 years, and each year it's gotten more and more co-sponsors. And right now, it has actually passed out of a U.S. Senate committee for the first time in history. It has almost a majority of the House of Representatives co-sponsoring it. The challenge really is to pass a committee in the U.S. Congress called the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee.
What has that got to do with it?
Well,
what has the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee got to do with the Clean Water Restoration Act?
Yeah, this is a committee that has historically had jurisdiction over water issues, and the chairman, Chairman Oberstar, has been a big champion of protecting clean water in the United States. And he is right now counting his votes. He is trying to get a majority of the committee to say they'll vote for it. And when he does, I expect that he will introduce the bill and that it will pass, and it will pass the House, and President Obama will get to sign it into law. The challenge is passing this committee. We got fairly close last year to being able to pass it out of this committee. I'm not sure if George Bush would have signed it. I don't think so. But we're in a really good position right now. The problem is that there are 5 members of Congress, or the reason we're working on this, Environment Illinois, a statewide environmental group, is working on this, is because this is a profoundly important issue for protecting the Great Lakes. If we want the Great Lakes to be healthy, we have to protect their source waters, the waters that feed and filter Great Lakes water. But also, our state is really significant in the outcome because we have 5 members of Congress who sit on this committee. We're disproportionately influential.
And which members of Congress would those be? Do you know?
Yeah, the members of Congress on this committee from Illinois are Congressman Lipinski, Congressman Aaron Schock from Peoria, Congressman Costello from Southern Illinois, Congressman Hare, and Congressman Johnson. Congressman Johnson's from the Champaign area,
right?
And Congressman Hare is
talk to your congressmen who are on this committee and
that's right.
Send him a letter.
You know, last year we worked really hard and we got Congressman Lipinski to champion this bill, and now he's been a very strong supporter of it. And that was great. He really wanted to have all his questions answered about it. He really wanted to understand it. And when he did, he really stepped up to bat for it. The other 4 members of Congress we're less sure about. And I would strongly encourage anyone listening who lives in Congressman Phil Hare's district, Aaron Schock's district, Costello's district, or Tim Johnson's district to call their member of Congress and urge them to support the bill.
Because once it gets out, if it can get out of this committee, then it's likely to pass the House?
I think it's likely to pass. Yeah, and you know, I just want to put this in context. The Clean Water Act really is a hugely significant piece of legislation. It was the big environmental fight of the previous generation of environmental advocates. It was copied around the country, around the world as a model for regulating water pollution, and the rollback that's happened is just immense. So EPA says that under current interpretation of the Clean Water Act, about 50% of the miles of flowing streams in Illinois and 60% of our few remaining wetlands wouldn't be covered. 1.5 million people in Illinois get their drinking water from sources that are fed by these small streams and wetlands. And so it is a very significant rollback in a very significant environmental law, and we just need to protect it. And all this bill is about is basically making things the way they were before 2001, when the first of these Supreme Court cases muddled the picture, and then the Bush administration
seized the opportunity there.
And it basically implemented the worst possible interpretation of that Supreme Court ruling.
Well, so this is the good news. So basically, this is kind of like that joke, I've got good news and I've got bad news. Which one do you want first? And so we've given our listeners the good news first. And once again, you are listening to Live from the Heartland, and I'm talking to Max Miller of the Environment Illinois. Thank you. About the current status of sort of environmental issues in legislation and sort of in general. Now, Environment Illinois, and actually I'm interested in the Natural Resources Defense Council's report that they came out with not that long ago, which found that the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico has grown exponentially, and that we in Illinois and the Midwest actually are huge contributors to that. Can you address that?
Sure. Yeah.
Like
in this country, we have a Clean Water Act.
Did we have a response to that either?
Well, we have a Clean Water Act in this country that has not totally solved the problem of industrial pollution, but has been a framework for addressing it. And we've made lots of progress in cleaning up industrial pollution in this country. A big gap we have in our environmental laws that we need to fix if we want to protect clean water is pollution from non-point sources, runoff from farms, pollution, and this is the pollution that is causing the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico.
So runoff isn't covered? I mean,
the Clean Water Act, the permitting system that the Clean Water Act set up only applies to point sources of pollution.
And what's a point source?
It's like a pipe. It's like a pipe that, the image of a pipe dumping toxic pollutants into waterways, or a duct, from a factory or a city, but
so if you just have like thousands of acres of chickens pooping and
exactly,
or fertilizer running off or whatever,
there's not a good framework
goes
for
into the groundwater and ends up in a river or a stream.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
don't care.
That's right. So basically, the pollution that's really the culprit for the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, which is bigger this year than it's ever been. It's the size of New Jersey. Is really caused largely by phosphorus and nitrogen. And phosphorus and nitrogen are used as fertilizers on cropland throughout the Midwest. They come from detergents and soaps that people use to wash their clothes, from the fertilizer people add to their lawns, and they're in animal waste. And in Illinois and Iowa, which were the two states that are thought to contribute by far the most to the dead zone.
We're the heavy hitters, yep.
Yeah. Well, we basically need to be working to clean up these sources of pollution.
But how do they do that? I mean, how is there a solution for that? I mean, if you are a person whose business is, I need to use fertilizer to run my business, and you tell me, well, your runoff is creating this giant dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, why should I care? And two, what could I possibly do about it? I'm not going to stop growing my crops or raising my animals. That's my living.
I was at a conference just a couple weeks ago about the Illinois River, which is a tributary to the Mississippi River. It flows across the state 350 miles through farmland in the heart of Illinois. And one of the presentations there was about a practice, high-tech farming practices, where the amount of fertilizer and nutrients added to soil for farming can be precisely controlled, where computers with GPS-enabled systems, drive themselves or drive tractors without a person at the wheel.
The GPS system is driving.
And deposit just the right amount of fertilizer for the qualities of the soil. And the qualities of the soil have been mapped so that it's known exactly how many additional nutrients they need in order to be maximally productive. And technologies like that are going to work. But we also need to...
So you're saying that would cut back on the amount of runoff that unnecessary?
Yeah, the problem is when more than is needed is used. If the right amount is used, it all is taken up into the plant, and so there isn't runoff.
So there are solutions.
There's some other solutions. We need to get phosphorus out of clothing detergents and soaps. We need to get people to stop using phosphorus-containing lawn fertilizers, and we really need to clean up confined animal feeding operations, which have a tendency to produce lots of sewage, in concentrated sewage, and don't do a very good job of containing it. And so it runs off into waterways and contributes to the dead zone.
Max Miller, thank you very much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I wish we could have gone a little bit longer. If you're interested in finding out what Environment Illinois is doing and you want to get involved, they're doing a great job, by the way. Lobbying is really important, and they also do independent studies. So go to their website.
It's environmentillinois.org.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being on the show, Max. And you have been listening to Live from the Heartland on WLUW 88.7.